Hello folks, and welcome to Hold the Eye Images video podcasting. This is our first episode, and we're going to talk about DSLRs and rangefinder cameras and what we like in both. I'm going to start off with the Nikon camera. This is my camera. Brian, you have a Canon?
Similar?
Yep,
Right,
almost
same.
identical. Pretty big hunk of metal here. This is a 24-70 lens. I've shot Nikons for 40 years, maybe. I don't know how long. I don't count. But this is a great camera.
Yep.
Fabulous camera. So that's this one right here. So the next camera we'll mention, this happens to be Brian's camera, but I have an identical one. This is the Leica M240. It is a phenomenal camera. This has a 50 millimeter 1.4 Summilux lens on it.
Yep.
You can probably have bought many cars in your life cheaper than this combination of camera and lens. But this is a great camera. It's a phenomenal camera. And then this is the new camera, and we're going to really get to this in a moment. And this is the Sony 7S.
A7.
A7.
How do you remember all these names?
I don't remember them all. I just look at this and say, this is
Very
Sony,
difficult.
and you can see its size. So we are documentary photographers. We shoot primarily people, but we have, in the case of Nikon and Canon, we have a complete arsenal of lenses from 600 millimeter to 12 millimeter. So we have been long-time Canon and Nikon shooters, and I will tell you right off the bat, in terms of quality, all three of these cameras are fabulous. There's just one camera is not better than the other. Canon is not better than Nikon. Nikon is not better than Canon. They all are great at the professional level. They're all great cameras. But he, not you, he spent last year in Africa in 5 countries doing documentary photography. And I'm not going to tell your story, but you got tired of carrying one of these cameras around.
Yeah, I did start the trips with a Canon equivalent of this. And I started shooting with Leica just last year, so I'm new to Leica. So I carried that camera around as well as my second camera and my backup camera. And I found that between the two cameras, as Bill said, they're very much the same. I know that you'll find people probably out there saying, oh my God, a Leica is like nothing else in the world. But you know, when you're in there working with your cameras every day, my Canon 1DX with its lenses, and I'm sure this camera would do the same, hard to tell the difference, right, with the cameras. But what was the biggest problem is that I was in situations where inside there was no electricity, there was no lights, relying on just light coming in from the window, and routinely being at 6400, 128,000 ISO, these incredibly high ISOs, and it was taxing the Canon.
Taxing. Sinking.
It was sinking the Canon.
Sinking the
big,
Canon.
heavy Canon.
And it would sink the Nikon. And it would sink the Leica.
And Leica is not particularly known for its high ISO. No. In this model, the 240, its high ISO capabilities. So
you can talk about a Zen factor with Leica.
Yeah.
Where it's a manual focus. There's something about Leica that everybody loves, the quality of the build and all that sort of thing. But the output, these 3 cameras, output will look very similar with one big exception that we'll get to. But the output of these 3 cameras is going to be very similar.
And if you think about, I made a New Year's resolution to carry a camera every day. And if you sort of look across this small little display, this becomes rather a pretty good investment to be hanging around your neck.
Yeah. You can drop your gym membership if you carry this camera around. This camera will take the place of anything you want to do in the gym.
We won't call it a dumbbell.
No,
that would be bad.
we won't. That's good. We won't call it a dumbbell. We might be dumbbells for carrying it, but we won't call it a dumbbell.
That's right. That's right.
So you really got tired of it.
And I got tired of carrying it.
And I'm not sure, and I've been a Leica shooter for a long time, but I have depended on autofocus and the capabilities of Nikon's and gotten away from doing a lot of the manual stuff.
And that was a big step.
For you.
For me, because I was autofocus. I can't see. I'm old.
And you were on a commercial assignment, too.
Yeah, and so going to a manual focus camera and not being familiar with it, having just had it for 3 or 4 months, and being restricted to manual focus, was a little scary. It was a little challenging. So that was another issue with sort of going to this camera. It's got a great viewfinder. It's got some great focus assist. I know that in 5 or 10 years' time, I probably can focus as fast or faster with it. That's what everybody says.
You don't need 5 to 10 years.
Well, that's what everybody says. So, okay, go ahead. Let's get off of this.
Yeah. So we both had heard about Sony. Obviously, the Nikon has a Sony sensor in it, the 800E, and has the 36 megapixels, 36.3 megapixel Sony sensor in it. And I also have the 800E. The new 810 is the same, is another Sony sensor. So we had familiarity with Sony and its sensors, and we knew about the 7R and its capabilities with the same sensor as the D800 had in it. But if you got a D800, the D800 is a smaller body than this. And I really hadn't thought about switching until Brian started complaining about all this weight he was carrying. Not physically on him.
Physically, yeah, right here.
No. But he was complaining about all these lenses he was having to carry. And so he started with the Leica, and that worked out fine. But as he pointed out, the high ISO is a problem. So we've both been looking at Sony for a while, since they came out with a big megapixel sensor. But then this little baby came out, the 7S. And we were going to rent one just to check it out, especially since a lot's been written about it accepting lenses. So these are Leica lenses. It accepts Nikon lenses, Canon lenses, all sorts of different off-brand lenses with these adapters. I've never shot it with Nikon lenses, but I have shot it extensively with Leica lenses. And it's great. And we'd heard about this, and one day, instead of renting it, we bought 2 of them. and it really has changed our thinking, hasn't it?
It really has. It really has. And effectively, the Leica and the Sony are exactly the same camera. It's got exactly the same glass. It's full frame.
But this is a little bigger sensor.
Yeah. It's more megapixels. Yeah. Full frame. But this has the ISO capability, right?
This thing can shoot in the dark.
Yeah.
I shot a gig at 10,000 ISO, and they were beautiful. Beautiful shots. And there's nothing around that I've ever seen that would shoot like that. And 12 megapixels, I mean, you can't see the studio, but we have 20 by 50, 20 by 30 by 60 prints sitting in here that were all shot with 12 megapixels. Yeah. You can't crop as much. You can't take a full frame shot and then crop the hand out and blow it up. But you can do anything you'd really want to do with a 12 megapixel file, short of fashion, commercial, and photography where they need a phase or something like that.
And again, with editorial documentary photography, we're not often, making billboard size prints.
They make big prints though.
Yeah,
but not billboard size.
And then let's talk a little bit about the way they've built their electronic viewfinder to aid in the focusing, because I know that's really changed a lot.
We'll start with Leica. So Leica is traditional rangefinder. You look through this little hole, and it has a split image, just like in the old days with film. So you match up 2 vertical lines that you can find in the image, and you use the little thumb focusing add-on. And for people who never manually focused, it's difficult. And Leica came out to compete with an electronic viewfinder that clips into the hot shoe. And it enables you to not only focus better by zooming in, so it will zoom in up to 10x.
Correct.
On your subject, and you can focus very finely, and then it pops out and you can take a picture. But you're looking through two different eyepieces here. You're looking through the rangefinder like that, and then you're looking through your electronic viewfinder. A little bit cumbersome. You get used to it. I got used to it. And the body is hefty. This is a heavy body, and very, very well built, as all Leica stuff is. This camera is totally different. It has an electronic viewfinder on the back, as you can see here, just like the less expensive compact digital cameras. You can look down like this and focus, or you can turn it, as I like to do, and shoot it overhead and look up. It gives you much more flexibility than anything on the market today.
And the built-in electronic viewfinder that you can get your eye up right close to, right? Like the viewfinder you'd have to put on here. It's built into there with the same focus peaking technology.
That's right.
That allows you to get that crisp image.
So it has eye sensitivity. So as you bring it up to your eye, the viewfinder automatically changes to the eyepiece, which is really nice. And peaking, for those of you who don't know what peaking is, it's the ability to put a color on what's in focus. So we shoot these cameras in black and white. The images come out in color, but you shoot them in black and white and raw. And we shoot the peaking on red, so that if I were to focus on Brian right now and I wanted to make sure his eyes were in focus, there would be little red dots in his eyes once I reached that point. Peaking is a very easy way. If you've shot video cameras, you'll be familiar with peaking. Peaking is a very easy way to focus. Very, very quick. I wish Leica had peaking, and I think the new Leica Q that's coming out with a 28 millimeter 1.4 lens does have peaking. But this camera is amazing with peaking, and it's much less expensive than this is, what, 24?
24 and change.
This is 7,000 and change, 7,200, and this is what, $4,000 or $5,000. Now, Leica lenses are expensive, but you don't have to. You can shoot on this camera. You can shoot any number of brands of lenses. Yeah. So, talk about your experience now that you've been shooting with it for a while.
Well, it's smaller. It's lighter. It's certainly more portable.
Has a prettier strap.
I get all of the benefits except the pixel count that I would get with the Leica body. Been moving to some more extreme wide-angle lenses with some Voigtlander lenses that we've discovered that were a little bit more affordable than Leica lenses, and with electronic viewfinder, you actually see what you get. So you are seeing the 12 millimeter or the 21 millimeter, field of view in there, which is nice. You could get that with electronic viewfinder here, but it's the add-on piece.
That's right. So normally, if you don't have the electronic viewfinder, which is like another $700 or $800 on top of the cost of a Leica, then you have bars and windows, or you have a slide-in hot shoe that gives you the field of view of your subject, in which you have to then go back to your viewfinder and focus. So it's a little bit cumbersome for anything outside of 35, 50, and 90.
And I found that the focus matching of the rangefinder with some of the extreme lenses, the coupling isn't perfect with the Voigtlander, so it's a little tricky to focus. And even wide angle focusing anyways is a little bit tricky because it looks like everything's in focus because it's so wide. So,
And supposedly you can use all of your Canon and Nikon lenses. Have you shot the Canon lenses on this yet?
I had the A7S on my 600. And autofocus worked with the Metabones.
That must have been a wild looking.
I should have taken a picture of the 600 on the gimbal mount with the little teeny camera in the back there. Yeah. But it did focus. It wasn't as fast as the 1DX. I don't know that I would want to shoot a cheetah running in Africa with it because I'd hunts a little bit. But the 600 isn't terribly difficult to focus. It's an f4, so you can knock it down pretty quickly with your hand if you need to. And even with the 1DX, it hunts and jumps because it's it's so temperamental. So it works basically on all of the primes with the Metabones adapter. And I think a lot of the newer zoom lenses seem to be able to do f-stop shutter speed and some autofocus. They claim that it's getting better with newer versions of Sony and new builds of the software or the firmware and the Metabones adapter, but that's to be determined.
Yeah, my experience is different. It doesn't work quite as well electronically with Nikon as it does with Sony thus far. Mechanically. I bought the Metabones adapter from B&H and had to return it. It just didn't work. And if you read the reviews, you'll see that it's kind of a hit and miss with lenses, with Nikon lenses. Now, my view is that's going to get fixed.
Right.
That eventually the smart camera makers are going to make camera bodies interchangeable with all lenses, even though the electronics might not be there. The autofocusing on these cameras, the Canon and the Nikon, are just lightning fast. And if you're shooting sports or wildlife or anything that's moving, that takes moving very fast, I'm not sure that Sony is the camera for you with a non-Sony lens on it. But Sony's coming out with more and more lenses every few months. So they're trying to add to the arsenal of lenses. So I'm not sure if you're going to add your big Nikon or Canon glass to it that it's going to work as well. And
it's an odd balance too. I mean, if you think about the size of this lens and this body, and then you put that lens on this body, right? I mean, it's an odd form factor. I don't know that it makes sense if you want to have that autofocus or that capability. I mean, for heaven's sakes, the Zeiss lenses that the lenses that Zeiss is making for Sony are awfully good. I mean, DxO is rating some of the highest scores that we've seen.
That's right.
With their quality. So
go to DxO lens. Just Google DxO lenses.
And so you may not even want to bother with this if you can get something that's matched for it. Everything works perfectly because everybody that I've talked to that have bought Sony lenses for the A series cameras has had absolutely zero complaints.
Yeah, the DxO has a new website format, a web page format where they have all of their lenses scored, and you'll see in the upper right-hand corner of that graph quadrant that they show as a front page for lenses. There are there's the Otis lenses, the Zeiss Otis lenses up there, the 55 1.2 I think it is, that's at the top so far, but you'll see all these Zeiss lenses there. I just don't personally want to have to go out and buy a bunch of more lenses because I switched bodies. I mean, I had a lot of Leica lenses, and I have a ton of Nikon lenses. I'd like to be able to use those on the Sony, and I'm assuming that they will eventually make an adapter that will work. So
well, I mean, and this was my package last year. This is going to be my package this year.
This goes away,
and I think that these two probably are about as big as that. So now I would trust this camera, in the field. I take the Leica body too because when we're out in bright sun, it's a great camera. It's got 26 megapixels,
That's right.
so I got a ton, and it's bulletproof. It's solid. It's been through the test of the elements. So, and I'm carrying one set of lenses.
Yeah.
Over here, I'm carrying two sets of lenses.
But to defend Nikon and Canon, from a weatherproofing point of view, they're the best. So you're not going to walk out in a rainstorm. I wouldn't, with Leica or Sony at this point. Now, Leica claims that it can repel water, but when you pay $7,000 plus for a body, you don't want to test that principle, really.
I think not.
Yeah.
And I have tested my 1DX over and over and over again, and it's had no problems at all with getting drenched with all kinds of icky stuff.
So our recommendation, the purpose of this video, was just to talk about camera gear and to say how much we really like this 12 megapixel camera and how versatile it is, and how it makes a big difference in the load we carry. And that's it for today. Stay tuned for another Hold the Eye Images video podcast.